that cotton crop, and I just swapped with him because I seen I wasn't going to be getting along too good there anyway. I just somehow or another didn't have much of a hankering to stay around, and he swapped with me. And my parents, they let me do it, let him do it, or whatever. And they swapped, and I was around there for a day or two, and I went to my Uncle Will's about 40 miles south of there, and went down there, and I picked cotton from my Uncle Will down there, or not from my Uncle Will, but yeah, I picked a little for him, but I picked for somebody else around there. And so I had about, I guess my second cousin, I guess it was, her husband, wanted to buy my little car, and I was having a lot of fun with it there, and done some race running, like 100-yard races and stuff like that, and, with first one and another there, and he was having a ball. He wanted that little car because it really run good for Model T, and finally I decided to sell it to him, and I was supposed to sell it to him for $150. Well, he paid me $75. He had $75 right then, and he said, I'll pay you a little along till I finish getting it paid. And when he gave me the $75, I only stayed around a day or so after that. And so I knew that I didn't want to pick any cotton, so I took off towards California. I was going to go to California. I had $75 in my pocket, and I hitched a ride and started out, and I got to Amarillo, Texas, and I got to Amarillo. I decided that, well, I don't want to hitch a ride anymore because it's too much trouble, and I had $75. So I bought a ticket to California, bought a ticket to Los Angeles, and got, I don't remember now what it cost, but I think it was $30, maybe $38 or something like that, that I got it for. And I got I didn't get a train ticket now, I got a bus ticket. I don't know what I said a while ago, but I got a bus ticket, and I got on the Pickwick. Now, in case you don't know, if anybody don't know about this, the Pickwick was an old bus that had the shocks out on the front of the bumper in front, had long hood on the front, had big old long engine, had the coach was, I guess 20 or 25 foot long, had the door that you got in at for every row of seats. There was five seats wide, 5 passengers wide, the seats were, and they had one door for every row of seats. Now, if you wasn't the first one and didn't want out, if you was the first one and didn't want out, you got out anyway because the last ones wanted out. And I rode that, and then out there somewhere, I wound up with, the bus driver wound up with one passenger. The passengers got off and on and off and on until we got somewhere out in Arizona or somewhere like that. And the bus driver only had one passenger on the bus. So the cab was separate from the other part. It wasn't together. You couldn't talk to the driver or nothing in there. And so he asked me to ride in the cab with him. I got in the cab. I agreed with him well because I didn't want to ride back there by myself anyway. And so I got in the cab with him. Got in the cab with him, and he got to talking to me, and he had a sister in Hollywood that, I don't know what her husband did now, but he worked in the movies or something, that done some of the technical work, I guess, in the movies. And he told me that I haven't seen my sister in a long time, and he said, why don't you go by and say hello for me and tell her that I said hello, and he said she might even, her or her husband might know somebody that would give you some work or something to do. And I said, well, I'd just be fine. I'll just do that. And so he gave me an address when he got off, I got as far as he went. Now, he didn't go all the way. And then the drivers didn't go very far, and they went back. So anyhow, I got her address, and when I got into Hollywood, well, I hunted her up the very first thing. I went straight there, and she was real friendly, and she was glad that I came by, and glad to hear from her brother, because she hadn't heard from him in a long time. In fact, I don't know if she even knew what he was doing. I told her all about what he said and everything. She was real happy, and she called her neighbors in and talked to them, and she had some bulbs or something she wanted to took up and replaced, and the time I got her bulbs fixed to put in place for her, the next one of her neighbors wanted some work done, and there for several days I worked. I went to a rooming house there in what was it, Sawtell or somewhere in that, right there, close anyway. I went and got me a room after she had me do some work and paid me $4 an hour. I got $4 an hour for the work that I did, and I'd never got $4 an hour, and I never got $4 a day in my whole life. Up till then, I'd never drawed $4 in one day for a day's work, I don't think, unless it was in Denver, and I don't think I did then. I don't think they paid me that much, maybe $3. But anyway, I worked there for her and her neighbors for several days. Got acquainted with her, never did meet her husband. He was always gone or something. But then I worked, after they got all through with me there, I was doing pretty good, and I had this room over there for not very much, it's a rooming house, and got acquainted with them people, and I liked the family pretty well. Yeah, I liked the family pretty good, so I don't remember what happened next there, but I know very soon after that I got this job in Santa Monica. I think I know there's an old guy rooming there, that's what it was. There was a guy rooming there, and he told me about somebody that he knew, some acquaintance of his, and well, I went with him a time or two. We went to a saltwater swimming pool there where a lot of people swam in salt water, and I never was much of a swimmer, but you could float in that salt pool water there, and I just was having a ball there, and kind of vacated for a few days, and then I went out looking for a job, and I went to a hotel, and I can't remember the name of the hotel now, but it's been tore down in later years, but it was one of the real fancy hotels right on the brink of the ocean there. Ocean View or something like that hotel or something like that. They're in Santa Monica. In Santa Monica. So I went there and applied for a job, and they gave me a job. What happened was they didn't really give me a job, but I got to talking there, and the guy that was working there all the time was going to take a vacation for 2 weeks, and he talked him into letting me take his place. So I took his place and worked there for 2 weeks, and at the first time I knowed about an earthquake then. This, of course, was in 1927, and real late. I don't know what time of the year it was, but it was like summer almost there in Hollywood. But it was late in the year there. So anyhow, when I was going to work that one morning, I got on the streetcar there in Sawtell or wherever that was at. I think it was Sawtell. I got on the streetcar at Sawtell, and it went right down in front of the hotel. And so I went down on the streetcar, and when I got on the streetcar, the guy that was operating the streetcar asked me if I felt the earthquake, and I said, no, I didn't feel no earthquake. And he said, well, there was an earthquake there. It was happening when I stopped. I felt it. And so I said, well, I didn't notice it. You know, I was walking fast, heading for the streetcar, and I guess the biggest jolt was when I jumped on the streetcar. And I don't know how bad of an earthquake it was at that time. It wasn't too bad, though. But when I got down there, I guess we had about, another maybe, I don't know what it was, 2 or 3 miles, how far it was from Sawtell. It wasn't no big distance. Right on down there, and when I got off and went in to the hotel there, the big chandeliers were still swinging. They weren't swinging bad, but they were still swinging, and they said they swung pretty hard when the earthquake hit. So I never did find out where the earthquake was, and I went done my day's work that day, and everything went along there pretty good. I know later on, I still stayed at that same rooming house for a long time, and when I'd be out of work or something, I'd go up there on the hill up, I forget the name of the place now. Maybe it was Sawtell, just a little ways out of Sawtell anyway. I know there that I'd go up there, and they were making a movie up there, and they was making what do you call it now? Oh, something. I don't know. I can't remember right offhand. I can't remember the name of that movie that they was making. But anyway, I sat around there and watched them, and there was a fellow there that was wrangling horses for him. It was a Western picture they was making, and they had this movie town, and they had everything set up, and it was just like a town if you went down the main street. But on the backside of that main street was just billboard, propped up thing, and there wasn't anything there. But I know close to there they was doing some timber. They was cutting a lot of eucalyptus. It was eucalyptus grove, just grove after grove after grove, or all the same grove maybe. They was cutting it out. It was destroying it or getting rid of it or something, and they was making it into wood and whatever, I guess, and selling it and burning some of it. And they had brush and all kinds of stuff there, and so they piled all this brush and stuff behind these frame buildings, these frames that looked like it's going to be buildings. I mean, looked like a real town. But they piled all that brush in behind them things and there. And well, I went to work for that outfit and worked a while there, and we piled brush in behind there. And then when I'd be off, when they wouldn't have any work for me, I'd go up there to the movies, watch them make the movie. And of course, the movie company come out there, and I don't know, 2 or 3 times a day, I guess, they fed them people right out there. And they had box lunches, and them box lunches were something else. They were good. And so I met up with a fellow there. His name was Wick Perian, and he was wrangling horses there, and I met up with him, and I knew him. He had lived just a half a mile from my place and worked for a man there one summer back in Oklahoma. And he was a bronc rider, and he would ride broncs. He'd ride any kind of a bronc. And I never seen him do this, but they said that he'd go out there after lunch and just up on the fence, and if he'd catch a mule, one of the mules or horses laying down near the fence, he would jump off the fence right onto the horse, and when it got up, he'd be on it, and he'd ride it, and it'd buck him. Oh, I just heard that, but I know he was a bronc rider, because I seen him ride broncs. Anyway, then I met up with him, and he was real friendly there and real nice to me, and he told me, he said, hey, just get in line here and get you a box lunch. And I got in line. After that, every time they had lunch, I got in line and had a box lunch. So every time when I wasn't working, I'd stay out there and watch them make a movie. And gee, I wish I could, maybe sometime in the tapes that I'm making, I'm going to make quite a few. Maybe sometime I'll just drop in there and say what the name of that movie was. But never did get to see the movie. I don't remember. I wanted to see part of it. I wanted to see it, and seems like I did, and I don't know if I did or not. Anyway, yeah, I did see it, but they put some of the parts that I thought was in there, and it wasn't in there. And I know they would spray something on the front of the building and make it look like it was a real big blaze there, and the people would be messing around there and running in and out and whatever, and it was a fire. The whole town was supposed to be burning down, and they didn't burn the brush out in back now. This wasn't the brush. This was just something they sprayed on the front of the building, and as soon as they made that scene, they would put it out. They would spray it and put it out, so it didn't burn up or anything. Then they did this for a long time. They worked on it, and when this one was a 2-story building, and this girl was up on this 2-story balcony. And this cowboy was supposed to come into town in a dead run, and he run his horse right up there to the porch, and his horse was supposed to stop there, and he's supposed to grab this girl off of that balcony up there. She's supposed to jump off the balcony. He's supposed to grab her and going out of town, because the whole town was on fire now. And it wasn't showing the whole town, it was just showing the one scene. So they had stuff sprayed on the building there to make it look like it was burning. Well, it was burning, but it was easy to put out. So as soon as, now it wasn't even a girl there, it was a man with girl's clothes on that made the dash off of there and onto the guy. It was a small guy. And this guy, never could get the horse to go up there. I don't know, he never did make a success of it. He tried and tried and tried and tried, and finally he grabbed the guy, and they took a chance on the last night. The last night of the thing, they burned it at nighttime, and they set that whole thing on fire, and them cowboys went through town I don't know how many times with them horses, and back and forth there, and they was running all over, and that guy run in there on that horse. He run in there on that horse at that balcony, and the horse was scared to death, and the fire was going on the backside of everything there. And when that guy run out there on that balcony, and that guy rode up there on that horse, and that horse just kind of reared up on his hind feet, and that guy grabbed the guy that was supposed to be a girl, and took off with him there, and they got out of town. That was the end of that scene. But I went all around down by Warner Brothers, where Warner Brothers is now. There in close to Magnolia Park, right south of Magnolia Park. There was Warner Brothers, just one building down there. But beyond that building, between there and Hollywood, right in there along the Los Angeles River, which Los Angeles River, is not a real river, but they call it Los Angeles River. It is a drainage, what it is. And actually went out there, and I saw Laurel and Hardy make a scene out there, one that I can remember that stands out real well. Laurel and Hardy was making one out there where they was in this old car, and I don't know if anybody ever saw that or not, but sometime it might show up. I've seen it on the movies. I've seen it in the movies since then, but this was just part of the scenes that I was seeing out there. And they would let you stand around just as long as you'd be quiet, or, and didn't bother anybody. They weren't no sounds or anything. Then that was all, there was no talking pictures at that time in that area anyhow. And so, Laurel and Hardy, there. They was making a picture. And, one of the scenes was something about the dish breaking. And they was breaking a bunch of dishes and all. But the main one that I can remember all about it was that they had this old car, an old car there, and they'd done something, and they had to get away real fast, and they run out there and jumped in that old car, and they had the all the wheels were loose, and it was just barely hanging there, and they had some guy way out there with a wire attached to each wheel. There was 4 guys, and the minute the last one of them jumped in that car, they jerked the wheels off of it. So that when they jumped in, all the wheels fell off of that car, and it just fell down there. And then they sit there and look silly at each other. Anyway, unless you see it, you probably wouldn't know what I'm talking about. But anyhow, I fooled around there for a long time and did the odd jobs and whatever. And just a little ways from there, there was a dairy there, and it was run by Russell White. Russell White run the dairy, and Russell White had several brothers, and I can't remember the brothers' names, but there was one named Earl. I know one was Earl, one was a real estate man, and I don't know what they all were, but I didn't work for I worked for Russell for a long time, and fed cattle. I fed cattle there in the corrals, and I worked for him, and got so much money in my board. I think $60 a month or something. I don't remember now, but I worked there for my board, because it was steady money. At the end of the month, I had all of it clear, because I wasn't spending any for anything, and so there I went along and I had working there for him, but he had a fellow working there that was from Arkansas. It was a foreman there, and he had got hurt on the polo field. They had a polo field there, the Whites did, and, right next to the dairy. There was a big polo field, and this guy was the foreman there, had been riding one of the polo horses, and he had one guy run across. They crossed there, and one of the polo riders had run over him, and he was just getting out of the hospital when I went to work there. He also had a brother working there, and I didn't get along with his brother very good, because his brother tried to run things, and I didn't go for that too well. And when he got out of the hospital and come back, he was awful cross, and of course he was still in no good shape to be on the job anyway. But after I worked there quite a while, when he come out of the hospital, I didn't get along with his brother, and his brother would complain to him then, and then he didn't fire me. I quit, but I could tell that it wasn't going to last very long, the way he was feeling about his brother, and he believed everything his brother said. So I thought, well, it's a good idea if I just get on out of here and stop working for him. So I talked to one of the other White brothers, and they was doing some grading out there between Magnolia Park and Warner Brothers studio. Now the dairy down there is gone. It was still there when I left here, but when the dairy, when I came back to California later, the dairy was gone, and there was another, I could forget the name of the studio, but there's another studio right where the dairy used to be. But there was a lot of vacant ground between the dairy where I worked and between, the dairy was right in between Brothers and Magnolia Park, where the old pumpkin was. Anyhow, I went to work for one of the brothers out there, driving, grading some streets. They're grading streets with a team of horses, and pulling it with his little slips and hauling dirt here and there and dumping it and whatever. And I worked on those and went on along there for till sometime along about in April, I guess it was March or April or something like that. There, anyhow, I'd been in California about 6 months, and I stopped. I went. This one old boy, I believe it was that old boy's brother that had the motorcycle, had a Harley Davidson 23 model. And if you ever seen a 23 Harley, there wasn't much to it, but it had to get up and go to it. It would go down the road. And I bought it from him, and I don't know how much I paid him now, but I paid him cash for it, not a big price anyway. And I got out there and run around in the sand in the field and drove it for a while and thought I was a motorcycle expert. I know there wasn't, nothing fancy, but I thought I could handle it pretty good and I could drive it back to Oklahoma and it'd be pretty cheap to run. I had enough money to make it on because it go a lot of miles on a gallon of gas, and so I took off, headed back for Oklahoma on that there motorcycle. Well, I don't remember too much that first day, but I got out there somewhere, got on out because there was no freeways or nothing then, and traffic wasn't too heavy or whatever, and I made it pretty nice. And going out there, and I got down pretty close to Imperial Valley, to Imperial, I mean. I was down in Imperial Valley, and I got pretty close to Imperial, California. Then we went down through Imperial, and now you'd go a different way, but I went through Imperial anyhow, and so it was early, and I wanted to go more to the south anyway, I thought. So I must have been 20 or 30 miles this side of Imperial. And I think it was, pretty sure it was the same day I left, and I had left early in the morning. And I was going along there pretty good, and I come to this curve. Well, I guess I forgot how to lean, which way to do it now. Since later years, I've been riding a bicycle now. I realize I never learned how to twist my hips and bring the motorcycle over instead of just leaning over there. Anyhow, I didn't bring the motorcycle over enough, and I seen it was going to hit the edge of the pavement, and so I just let it go on off. We went off into a sandy-like area. There wasn't nothing there to bother us at all. But I kept the motorcycle going, and I made a big circle out there and come back to the pavement again on an angle. And I was coming pretty fast, but where I went off at, there was no difference. Even a foot drop-off wouldn't have made any difference because the motorcycle just floated out there. I was rolling pretty good. And I guess it had slowed down to around 45 miles an hour when I brought it back to the pavement, and there was about a foot or something jump up there, and that was a little too much for it. And so it busted, I don't remember for sure. I think it busted the front tire or pinched it or something. But it skidded, it throwed the motorcycle down and skidded, the motorcycle skidded, and it skidded with my leg, one of my feet, my right leg, underneath the motorcycle, and my shoe, I had on heavy shoes, and my shoe was on the asphalt, and the motorcycle then was on the shoe. And there I was sliding down there, and my elbows are hitting the ground now and then and whatever. And I don't know how far I slid, because I always called it about 100 feet, but it surely didn't slide that far. But it slid a long ways, and somebody was right behind me there. It seen me and stopped, and then some other people stopped, and this one man took me on into Imperial, motorcycle and all, and I got in there and he took me to wanted to know if I wanted to go to a doctor, and I said, no, I don't need to go to a doctor because I didn't have any money. I didn't have a lot of money for a doctor anyway. And so I told him, no, I'll be all right. And so I went in there and to this hotel. In this hotel there, they didn't have any beds. They was full up, and they wouldn't take me in. So I almost begged them. To take me in, and finally the proprietor decided that there was a cot that they could put at the end of a hall, and they could draw a little curtain across there, and I could use that for the night, so that I wouldn't have to be put out in the cold. Well, it wasn't cold, but anyway. So the expense wasn't very much, and so I stayed there that night. But after I was there an hour or two, I found out that I was really hurting a lot worse than I thought. And when the motorcycle fell, my foot twisted over, and the inside of my foot was on the pavement, and the outside of my foot was up towards the motorcycle. So it had ground the side of my shoe off. It ground off the sole and the leather and everything, and ground right on into to the heavy part of my ankles. My ankles were cut pretty deep, ground off, and my side of my heel and the side of my foot up there by my big toe, that was it went to the bone there. And so I was in misery, and I tell you that I spent one miserable night there, and just walked the floor. I walked the floor there, and I didn't make any noise any more than I could help, but I just walked the floor back and forth in that hall, and I guess people could hear me walking, even though I was barefoot, and every once in a while somebody would stick their head out, and finally some of them decided to talk to me, and and I told them my problem there, and I told them I was sorry, but I just couldn't stand still. It hurt so bad, and they kind of sympathized with me, and we got through the night. So when we got through the night, I was feeling fairly well by the next morning. It quit hurting so bad, and I don't even remember. It seems like I bought some stuff to go on it, but I can't say I did or not. But I got back out the next morning, and I got on the motorcycle and took off and got on through and started towards Phoenix, Arizona. And up there, now, like I said, there weren't any highways, and I had planned on going the southern route back, but when I got there and I had the motorcycle accident and everything, I decided when I got out of Imperial to head for Phoenix, Arizona, and go through the closest way I could get home. So I took off and going to Phoenix. Now, there was a strip of road between Imperial Valley and Phoenix, and it was this side of Phoenix from me. It was closer to Phoenix than it was Imperial. And when I got up there, I don't know how long it took me to get that far, but there was a strip of road. It was just dirt and gravel. It was only dirt and gravel. There was no pavement there for about 40 or 60 miles there in that strip of road before I got into Phoenix. Now, I wasn't too far from Phoenix, I know, but some places it was just two ruts. It'd just be two ruts, and then sometimes the ground would be pretty level, and just be kind of dirty looking, and no gravel on it. So I was going through there, and I wasn't going fast anymore. Once I got over the fast business, and I was driving probably around 40 miles an hour or something like that. And I came to this curve. It wasn't a big curve or anything, nothing to lose any momentum or whatever. And at that speed, I was perfectly safe, and the ground was smooth, just level as could be, but dirt. And all of a sudden, to my surprise, that motorcycle, the front end of it, dropped into a hole about a foot or a foot and a half deep, where cars had just kept chugging there and chugging, and it knocked that hole out deep, and the ground was hard, except in just a powder like was just a powder like in it was that was level off. You couldn't see any rough place in front of you, and that motorcycle dropped in there, and it surprised me, and it turned a kind of a somersault. Don't know just how it did it, but the dirt went so fast, that dust went so high, couldn't even see myself what was going on. And so when it was over, I had took a dump. I've been dumped out there in the dirt, and so my face was all skinned up. Now, it wasn't crippled up, I don't reckon, that I could tell. Didn't seem to be crippled up, but I know it was skinned up, so I went into, I got up. When the dust settled, I could hear my motorcycle running, and it was laying on its side out there in the dirt, and it was just going wide open, and that dirt was going everywhere, and I didn't know if there's anybody behind me or nothing. So I took and I went to the motorcycle by hearing it, and I got to it, and I got the thing shut off. And when the dirt settled, there was people there waiting, but they couldn't see me either, so they didn't know what happened. But they just sitting there waiting to see what happened. So they come out there, and they picked me up. And, well, I got up. Of course, I was up, and one of the men took me on up. We left the motorcycle sitting there, pushed it off side the road. And one of the men took me up to a house. There was a house right up there about half a mile away that we could see, and he took me up there, and those people had put something on my face, and I think they put raw iodine. I'm not sure, but then I didn't know what they put on, but they doctored the skin places off all over my face, and excuse me. And whenever later, I didn't have any beard grow there. For years, I never had any beard grow there until after I used the electric razor. There was no beard growth on those skin places, so they must have burned it with a pure iodine or something that they put on there, burnt the skin so that the hair wouldn't grow. But the electric razor vibrated the skin until it came back to life or something, and now I have beard there. So anyway, then after they doctored me, the man took me back. I wanted to go back to my motorcycle, and I went back and I got it. And it wasn't tore up or anything. And, you know, motorcycles take pretty good jolts. And so I got on it, and I rode it on into Phoenix. I took my time and just jogged along till I got into Phoenix. And I swore, see, this was the second accident, and they say the third one's charmed. So I took them at their word, you know, when they say the third one's charmed. So I didn't want to fool with the motorcycle anymore. I just wanted to get into Phoenix, and I started looking around to try to get rid of the motorcycle. And I run on to an old boy, had an old Model T that had been stripped off, and he built him a metal bed on there, a metal body, and it was kind of a peculiar looking boat type shaped thing, and it would run. That's about all there was to it. It would run, had tires on it and whatever. And I finally tried to get $25 for the motorcycle, and I couldn't. Well, he traded me that car for the motorcycle, and I never got a title to it, and I didn't give him a title to the motorcycle, because I had got the motorcycle from the boy, and then, you had to send him into Sacramento, and I didn't wait for it to come back and didn't tell him where I was going, so I didn't have a title, and he didn't either, and we just traded. So when I got the car, I took off, and I went on east there, and I don't know, now I can't remember about the deals, but I know the road I took from there went right by the Hoover Dam. Let's see, was it Hoover? The Hoover Dam? Yes, it was. I'm sure it was the Hoover Dam. That they was just starting the Hoover Dam. This is in the spring of '28. I mean, it was underway, but they was pouring concrete way in the canyon below the camp. And I went up to the camp there. Somebody told me about it, and I took off the road and went up there and thought, well, I'll just get me a job and work, And I went up there and I got a job. They hired me. So, I stayed that night, and in the evening there, I was watching the guys come and go. The new ones are going down to work, and the ones are coming up. And stories they was telling about the concrete and about people getting hurt and about them getting killed and whatever. And I could see that it wasn't no fun. Just looking down there made me dizzy. From camp down there to the place and to where they was pouring at right then in the bottom part. And so I decided I didn't want none of that. And I sold one of them old boys that worked there. I sold that old car to one of them boys there, and he promised to take me back to the highway. It was about 15 miles back to the highway, and he promised to take me back to the highway, and he sold me that. I sold him that old car for, I don't know what now, $10 or $15 anyway. And so, he took me back down to the highway and stood me off, and I hitchhiked for a long time. And after I hitchhiked for a long ways, I don't know how far, I've decided to ride the train, so I started bumming on the freight train, and then I remember one place, and I can't remember where I got on the train at or where I quit riding it, but, well, I guess I quit riding it back in Elk City, Oklahoma. That's where my folks was at. And I went to, got on this freight, and somehow, there was a bunch of us on the freight, and we wanted to get, we was going to get off in this town. I don't know what the name of the place was, somewhere in Texas there before we got to Amarillo anyhow. And there was a bunch of us on there, and they all went different directions, but this one guy, he kind of went where I went, and he was a young fella, but he was a little older than me. I mean, then I was, of course, 17 years old yet, and he was older than me. He's probably about 21 or 2 or something like that. And he was carrying a case, a something suitcase or whatever. I don't remember how he was carrying, but he was carrying something with him. And so we had money, but we didn't want to spend. Back in those days, if you had money, you sure didn't want to throw it around. It wasn't like kids nowadays. If they have $25, they have to spend it before the day's over or something like that. But back then, no, we didn't, boy. We was going up the street, and he wanted to know if I would share a hotel room with him, because he was short on money, and he told me he was a barber, and he was looking for a job as a barber. So, of course, he didn't know if I had any money or not, and I told him, well, I'd like that too, because money is scarce. And so we went over, and we walked up the street, and finally we found a place, and we went in and asked him about it, and Yeah, they had the room, and so didn't look very like a very fancy place, but then we couldn't afford a fancy one anyway, and so we asked the guy how much for a room and with the double bed and in it, and he told us 75 cents. So it cost us 35 cents a piece, or 30 something a piece there, you know, to make to get to buy a bed. And so I didn't know the guy and everything, and so I slept with my pants underneath my head and everything, had my money in there and what I had, and so I was going to be sure that I'd wake up if anything happened. So the next morning, I had been on the train for a while and worn out, but I want to go back to one thing here. That bed, I'll tell you,